Let's talk about the best starters in Godforge, because obviously this was the age-old question many people was trying to solve out in obviously Godforge's Alpha Wave 3 to really take advantage of pushing as far as possible. And the thing is, we will go through all three of these different rares in today's video, which is going to be Lady Shock, Guan Yu, and Ramses. If he wants to click on him, it is a little bit buggy sometimes, but obviously our boy Ramses to fill in shit out. And we're going to talk about how good each of them are and how honestly these starters are going to be good, especially when the full game goes live for a variety of different reasons. So smash like, comment, and subscribe. Let's dive into today's video. So the first thing is, let's go into Lady Shock, because I think Lady Shock's a really good one to start off with, and it kind of sets the tone, especially when with the other two. Because the thing is, Lady Shock, and I will tell you, Lady Shock slaps. So out of the other two, she does do pretty much one of the highest damages when you build her correctly. Kind of similar to actually the Ramses in terms of just wave clear damage as well on her area of effects. And what's really cool about her, she does place bleed as her kind of mechanic built in. And when you do upgrade her and ascend her, you're going to get that passive as well. So you do more damage based on how much bleed stacks are on them. And the thing is, this is actually a really good starter. Even in Caverns, it will get you pretty far down the line. You might not be able to complete maybe stages like 120 with this hero, but by then you should have better DPS replacements. But the thing is, with her kit, especially with her core, which attacks all enemies and has a 3-turn cooldown, and then her ultimate here, which is even more powerful because it attacks all enemies for 2 turns. But if an enemy is defeated, you place speed up 2 on herself so she goes quicker next turn, and you reduce the cooldown of that core ability by 1 turn. So this means this goes into a 2-turn cooldown, so you're getting it up sooner and you can kind of rotate it around again and actually get some good old damage out. So she's really good. And the thing is, I think she's going to be better maybe in beta, because at the moment in the alpha experience, as many of you guys know, if we jump out of here and go into the main game, we are only kind of fighting this Cavern Experience. And to be honest, this Cavern Experience has been phenomenal. It's been super fun, but it has kind of adopted to one particular play style, which means when we go back out of here and click on the battle, you got to remember we've got bosses, we've got dungeons, we've got arena, and even in campaign. Plus, that's not even mentioning any of the other content potentially coming to this game, which is quite insane. And when you kind of look in that perspective, as a starter hero, especially when we find her in the rarities, Lady Shock, I think, is going to actually be a fantastic starter to pick in a variety of different content that isn't the Caverns Experience. And that's kind of fair, because the thing is, you don't want 3 heroes that are all good in the same area. You kind of want people to kind of select different starting paths and different ways of playing the game from the get-go, and let their choices and decisions impact their progress, impact their account, and honestly make them feel good when they get those pulls and make that milestone push that they need. So I actually think Lady Shock in the Caverns, not that great. Outside of Caverns, I think she's going to be phenomenal, just because, again, she is a good hero. She is not bad at all. So everyone needs to kind of get that in their heads when they go into it. However, Ramses and Guan Yu, both of these heroes are actually really good in Caverns for different reasons, right? And the thing is, you can imagine Ramses is potentially going to be better in other content too, because the thing is with this hero, which is crazy, is obviously he places acid as his keyword, and placing acid on the enemy with the lowest max HP for 2 turns if you defeat anyone with his ability here, this basic one. But his ultimate attacks all enemies, and if an enemy is defeated, you increase the turn meter of his hero by 30%. Then attack all enemies with a 25% chance to strong hit, which means you're going to be doing even more damage, and has an 80% chance to acid on each turn for 2 targets. But the thing is, when you start to power him up, this is where things get kind of disgusting, because Awakening 3 places mend on himself, so he's actually pretty tanky as well through a lot of the flaws. And then if an enemy is defeated with his ultimate, you also reduce the core cooldown, very similar to obviously Lady Shock, by 1 turn, which makes this hero just as fast as Lady Shock in terms of rotations. But the difference is he hits so hard. It's kind of crazy. 420% attack all enemies on here. And you got to remember, this is alpha, and these numbers could change in the beta and in the live gameplay. So remember, we've got to take all these numbers with a grain of salt. But the kit could obviously stay pretty similar. It might have a change here and there. But yeah. So when we go into the actual power now of this hero, on top of all of that wave color he's got, Acid is going to be the key thing that actually separates him compared to Lady Shock. So Acid on Ramses, especially as a starter hero, this is going to disable armor sets. So if you're going against certain enemies, obviously they're not going to be able to do certain funky effects against you, which is great. But you're also inflicting 5% of the maximum HP as damage to the target, and that's at the start of the turn, right? This is double the damage against shields and barriers. So against really effective against those like defender comps, and really good against Isis, for example, or even Chi-Chi's and anyone running an imprint of Hound of Dua. You're able to actually just blast through them because of this double damage here, and you'll realize this is actually super effective in game. So he's honestly a really good starter, as you can tell, and many people will tell you who have used him, he is an all-star rare starter, especially in Caverns. However, in my experience, and I think as many are starting to realize too, the best Cavern hero was Guan Yu. Guan Yu, the sleeper of sleeps, which obviously caught very much many people off guard, but when they started to see the real power of this hero, no one could dispute it, because he is, if we want to say it, built for this Cavern experience, because Guan Yu, compared to the others, has some of the most craziest damage in all scenarios, and not just in one, which is fantastic for this Cavern style gameplay. Because the thing is, when we look at his A2, he attacks all enemies with a 25% chance to strong hit, which is sick, just like our good old Ramses. But he's also placing that Drain 2 effect on the target for 2 turns. And this is super powerful on its own, because you got to think, anyone damage on that target now, you increase it by 20%, and attackers heal by 20% of the damage from their attacks. So inherently, you're dealing really great damage with this, but you're also supporting your team, which is super important in the Cavern experience, because you'll be surprised how many scenarios where just being able to multi-hit on a Drain 2 target, one of your heroes get to full health, get to survive the next turn, and then guess what? You cleared that wave and potentially the floor and moved on. But then what makes him even better than all this synergy and just his A2 we've been talking about is the fact his core skill, his basic skill here that you use every turn, attacks one enemy, but if the target's under drain, which they normally are when you play this starter hero, you're going to be damaging 5% of that target's maximum HP. And this obviously sounds just as good as the acid, because the acid is doing the exact same amount of damage, but at the start of turn. But the difference is with this skill is the fact that it is on your basic ability. And because it's on your basic ability, you can do some really funky stuff, like the Avenger set to attack back at the enemy. You could use Bork's Imprint for a 25% counter attack to again attack the enemy. You could use stuff like, even if we go up here to some of the legendary heroes, Aphrodite to get that combo attack going. You could use Shamasha's basic attacker 2 to get into that combo attack. We can even run Zeus's ultimate again to attack all allies team up, and again obviously that's going to also attack. So because of that, just that one line on its own allows us as players to actually get more than one instance of this generally going off. And what's really good about this too as a hero, especially against big bosses, doing 5% of that target's maximum HP every attack basically says to the boss, look, I'm going to kill you in around 20 turns if you don't heal, which is a timer on you. So you need to now either kill my team within that time limit, or I'm going to be basically killing you in that time. And what's really good, that is not obviously adding in any of the other damage that you might have been doing with any of your other team in that dungeon boss or raid that you're going to be doing in the game. So he is an all-star on that just alone. And if we just kind of finish off his kit just to give him obviously as much spotlight as the others, you can see attack all enemies, then attacks 2 random enemies, and if an enemy is defeated, you place initiative up 2, which allows him to get his ultimate up even faster now. And if an enemy is also defeated, you also reduce that core ability by 1 turn. So this is just as overloaded as the others, plus you get initiative up 2, so you can get back to this ultimate even faster on the next turn. His passive, when you are fighting anyone under drain, you're gonna get 20% on them, right? So as you can kind of see, and I think this is a no-brainer from anyone now playing this experience, Guan Yu is the Cavern hero of Cavern heroes, if this is what you're going to pick for the starters. But that does not mean, again, Ramses or Lady Shock is not going to be the best starter for you in beta or in global launch. Because you got to think again, back at the beginning, there is going to be multiple game modes, multiple different types of content to clear, where each one of these starter heroes are just going to be infinitely better than the other. You can imagine in PvP, guess what? Ramses is actually going to be a crazy little rare hero for the fact that, guess what? If you apply that acid onto the enemy's PvP team, you're disabling any armor sets they've got on. So any of those bonuses they've got is just turned off, which is absolutely crazy when you think about it for PvP. So this is what's really interesting, and I think for me as a new player, and I think you guys may be watching this as a new player or even a veteran of this genre but been playing Godforge for the first time, will probably agree with where all heroes are actually good. I'm not gonna lie, each starter hero is fantastic. But if you want my opinion on the best alpha Cavern starter, without a doubt, it's always going to be Guan Yu. He was crazy. And just to kind of finish off the video and just to kind of be a little bit cooler in the crowd, what I thought to do, just to give it a little bit more ice on the cake, if you start off with any of these heroes, I'm just going to send a few different hero suggestions your way now, so you can actually pair them up in beta or even pair them up when the game goes live. So if you get this starter, you get a couple of these heroes, you know already you've got a nice little team synergy combo that you can be running right now. So firstly, with Guan Yu's got a really cool little team combo that you can be running, especially in the early game, because he can be your main DPS in there and he's going to be doing absolute work. So what we can be running, and this is a really fantastic hero for him, is actually Green Knight. Because Green Knight is a really cool brawler hero that you can build maximum HP, and because of that, when it comes in terms of gearing this hero and going for your weapons, you're going to be looking for a weapon with HP percent on, but more importantly, generates counter attacks through the box imprint or using Isolde's imprint to heal 2.5% of your HP, which is a lot of HP from your Green Knight when he's built correctly on all of your team when a defender is hit. And don't worry, that will be added in a second. But by adding Green Knight and Guan Yu just as a 2-man combo here, you're going to be able to, on his A1, actually attack an enemy 3 times and have a 75% chance each time to place a drain on that target, which instantly is going to obviously combo with your Guan Yu, allowing to have that uptime on the drains to make sure always a drain is placed onto the target, allowing him to do the most damage at all times consistently, or basically what we're going to say. But what's really cool about him as well, you offer a bunch of utility with your Green Knight, so you can steal all buffs from an enemy, then have a 75% chance to place Taunt. So when you're going against stuff like Isis, or even, I'm trying to think, like maybe even a Quetzalcoatl that is buffing all of their team, and even technically like a Sphinx buffing all of their team, you could actually steal the Sphinx's buff and become a super tank yourself. And if you're lucky, get that taunt on him. And guess what? You have got a game-changing hero here, because he's going to start retaliating back. And every time he's retaliating back onto these enemies, he's going to be attacking with that base skill, which is, again, applying drain, which no matter what, for our Guan Yu, anytime a drain is applied, you've got to think, our core ability is doing more damage, our ultimate is doing more damage because of the passive here, doing 20% increase, and obviously it's turning on our 5% here. That's just 2 heroes, and that is fantastic. And just to finish off the combo, for you guys, you can run anything like Isolde with a Tristan, and Isolde with Brynhild, and Isolde with a good old Hippolyta to try and get some more joint attacks in with a random ally, which could land onto, obviously, the Guan Yu. Another really good honorable mention here, which would be the best pick of a defender slot, potentially, if you could get away with it, if it was working correctly, would be MrSneakyy. As of the alpha wave, this hero just wasn't fully working, because when you actually upgraded this skill and awakened him, you kind of just stopped working. Like, no joint attacks happened. However, obviously in beta, in the launch of the game, that's not going to be the case. And this one skill alone is going to allow you to get your Guan Yu to attack more often again. This is going to allow them to get more debuffs, and here is allow them to not remove any buffs placed on 10 units. So really powerful little line here for them that's allowing more attacks from Guan Yu while being a defender, so you can obviously heal through the Isolde passive on Isolde and healing through the Isolde passive on that Green Knight. So you can kind of see the little combo there that you can run as a little team. Another easy and peasy team, as I like to call it, with Ramses, is actually pairing him up with 3 different rare heroes, and then you can pair him up with whatever you kind of like as a healer maybe. But you can go no wrong with running a Ramses with a Tutankhamun. This little guy, if we've still got one in our team, there we go, is actually a really nice combo on each other, because Tutankhamun here has a little passive when you turn it online that all attacks have a 20% chance to place Curse 1 onto the target for 3 turns, which is basically anything in his kit. His E1 attacks one enemy 2 times, 30% chance to place that acid, so you combo in with your, obviously, Ramses to multiply as much acid uptime on the enemies for that 1 turn, obviously, rotation. If the target is under the curse, though, it's a 2-turn clock instead. So this honestly really does alleviate the acid rotation between your Ramses and the Tutankhamun, because you're able to actually get 2 turns potentially, then wait for them to go down, then get the turns from Ramses, and by the time that's done, you should have this back up off cooldown, which is quite nice if you ask me. Going into his ultimate, you attack one enemy 3 times. The first has a chance to put a drain 1, which is pretty cool, but you could run this in theory with that Guan Yu, but I wouldn't do that, because it's a much better fit with your Ramses, because you're going to get that vulnerable 1 on the target too, potentially, which is going to make all of your acid here do 10% more, which isn't too bad when it starts to add up in this kit. So that's already 2 little damage heroes that you could put there. And if you want to look for like a nice cheeky support that people do overlook in the early game, it's technically Ankh. I actually really like Ankh, and if you look at her at Awakening 5-year, you can see why she's actually a phenomenal hero, because you're able to attack enemies and place initiative 1 on this hero and allies aligned with order, right? Which is kind of important, because when we go into it, you can see she's order. If we go over here, we've got a chaos guy, and if we go down to where's Tutankhamun, he should be order. So you're able to get that initiative up onto him to allow him to get his ultimate off quicker, which should obviously combo really well with the vulnerable state on our Ramses, right? Also, what's really good about Ankh, which I like about this combo, is the fact that she also provides you with a shield, and she also provides you the ability to remove debuffs and disables. So she is a really good little utility hero. You just need to build a ton of HP, and you're basically super safe with your team. And for that 4th hero slot, you can run something like an Isolde, but any sort of support, even like an Emotet, actually fits really well in this team because a big burst heal is quite nice for the one-time uses you kind of need it for, but it's the fact that you can give Stalwart and Sharpen onto the target, and here you can put Reflect as well. And just imagine with our Ankh in there, she's going to be extending all the durations of those 2 buffs potentially by 1 turn if she's able to hit the right ones, because it is 2 random ones. But look, that's kind of a little nice little combo there. For our Lady Shock, it's a no-brainer. If you want to go down a bleed team, early game, you can run Vlok Dalak. He is a little bit okay. Just apply 2 bleeds stacks, and what you would run in this team is basically some sort of Defender and Invoker combo, just like your Isolde, Tristan, just to give a bit of sustain in there to keep your heroes up, because you're going to be trying to place as many stacks of bleed as you can with the Vlok Dalak, which is going to fuel, obviously, the passive on your Lady Shock, so then she hits even harder as the waves keep getting harder and the fights get longer and longer on the turn count, so you kind of get a benefit out of that. But just as you can imagine, with our Vlok Dalak, there is a much better upgrade, as many people have loved, and even myself has been calling out for ages. It's Achilles, and we're going to be doing some hero spotlight videos on the channel, so keep an eye out for those. But Achilles is a fantastic little bleed hero here for, obviously, Lady Shock. Placing 3 stacks of bleed, that is just 6% increased damage flat out, and that's not including if he retaliates and places again another 3 stacks onto any of the targets. So he's a really good bleed applier, and obviously Lady Shock is kind of your early game bleed kind of payoff until you get someone like Dracula, for example, that really does take advantage of those stacks. So those are some combinations for all 3 of the starter heroes. I've gone through which starter heroes I think are the best, and obviously Guan Yu being the all-star for the Caverns, but in the future, we might have the PvP All-Star Ramses and maybe like a wave clearing monster in certain scenarios too with our good old Lady Shock. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, what you think to these heroes in the game. Where do you think these could be used in the future of Godforge, with brand new content on its way that's going to look absolutely crazy, and honestly where each one of these are going to excel over the others. So if you enjoyed today's video, smash like, comment, subscribe. Until next one, stay safe, stay sneaky, guys. Peace out.